There is a kind of silence that happens at the end of the month. Not when the bills are paid, when you are staring at what is left, calculating again where it all went. And underneath that silence, a quieter question starts to rise. Not how do I get more money, something smaller, almost embarrassing to admit out loud. Why does it seem so easy for some people and so hard for me? A woman who lived almost 100 years ago asked herself that exact same question. She was not born wealthy. She was not lucky. She had lost things, started over more than once. And yet somehow she found something, a law hidden in plain sight, that let money begin to move toward her instead of away from her. Her name was Florence Scovel Shinn. And what she discovered did not ask for more effort. It asked for something almost the opposite. Stay with me tonight, because by the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what that law was, and why no one ever taught it to you. Florence was not born into money. She was born into a family that valued art and beauty, and for years she made her living as an illustrator, drawing pictures for magazines and storybooks, watching other people's stories take shape under her own hand. She was good at it. But somewhere in her 40s, after a marriage that ended, after years of trying to make a living doing what she loved, she found herself in a place that might feel familiar to you. Not poor in the dramatic sense, just tired. Tired of working hard and watching the money slip through her fingers anyway. Tired of being told that if she just tried a little harder, prayed a little longer, believed a little more sincerely, things would finally turn around. She had already done all of that, and it had not worked, so she started watching. Not striving, watching. She paid attention to the women around her who seemed to have an ease about money that she did not have. Not because they were smarter, not because they worked more hours. Something else was different. And the longer she watched, the more she noticed a pattern so simple it almost embarrassed her that she had missed it for so long. The women who struggled were always, in some quiet way, defending themselves, talking about what they lacked, bracing for the next bill, saying things like "I can never get ahead" or "money just disappears in this house." Small sentences said almost as a joke, said 100 times without anyone noticing they were being said at all. And the women who had ease, they spoke differently. Not because they were pretending, because somewhere along the way, without anyone teaching them, they had stopped fighting the current and started moving with it. Here is the part that changes everything. The part Florence eventually put into words that would outlive her by a century. Your life is not built by what you do. It is built by what you have already decided is true, long before you open your mouth. The words you speak are not just sounds. They are instructions. Quiet, repeated instructions, given to a part of you that is always listening, always taking notes, always arranging your circumstances to match what it has been told. Think about the river for a moment. Picture it the way Florence might have. Not as something you have to conquer, but as something you have spent years swimming against without realizing there was ever another way. Most people spend their whole lives paddling, pushing, gripping the water like if they just worked harder, fought longer, they would finally win. And every so often, exhausted, they stop. They let go for just a second. And in that second, something strange happens. The current picks them up and carries them further than all their effort ever did. That is not luck. That is a law. A law that has nothing to do with how hard you work, and everything to do with what you are quietly commanding, sentence by sentence, day after day, without ever realizing you are doing it. Maybe you already know what it feels like to try everything. The affirmations written on sticky notes and forgotten on the mirror. The prayers said at 2 in the morning when the worry would not let you sleep. The books, the videos, the journaling. Each one promising that this time, finally, something would shift. And maybe some of it helped a little for a while. But underneath it, a question kept returning, quiet and stubborn. What am I still missing? What does everyone else seem to know that I do not? You are not missing intelligence. You are not missing effort, certainly. If anything, you have already proven you will work harder than most people ever will. What you were missing was never a strategy. It was a law. One that does not care how educated you are, how hard you pray, or how many years you have been trying. It responds to one thing only. And Florence built her entire life's work around naming it. You have been taught your whole life that money responds to effort. Florence discovered something almost embarrassing in how simple it was. Money responds to command. Not begging. Not striving. Command. Spoken with the quiet certainty of someone who already knows the outcome. And there was one specific way she learned to give that command. A practice so small most people would walk right past it. But once she understood it, money did not just come a little easier. It came as if it had been waiting for permission the entire time. That is where we are headed next. Florence called it a decree. Not a wish. Not a hope. Not one of those soft little affirmations you whisper while crossing your fingers behind your back. A decree is something else entirely. It is a statement said the way a queen might speak to her own kingdom. Not asking permission, not negotiating, simply declaring what is already true. Here is the part most people get backwards. We are taught that we should speak about money the way we feel about it. If we are scared, we should sound scared because that is honest. If we are struggling, we should describe the struggle in detail, because that is real. Florence discovered the opposite. The way you feel is not the instruction. The way you speak is the instruction. And your mind, the deeper part of you underneath all the worry, does not care what is currently true. It only cares what it keeps being told is true. Picture for a moment the most loyal assistant you could ever have. She does not question you. She does not roll her eyes at your requests. She does not say, "Are you sure you can afford that?" She simply takes whatever instruction you give her, and she begins arranging your entire life around it. Your decisions, your reactions, even the people you happen to run into, the opportunities that seem to find you out of nowhere. That assistant has been with you your entire life. The only problem is, for years, you have been giving her instructions you did not mean to give. I never have enough. Money just slips through my hands. It's always something. Said as a joke. Said as small talk. But she was listening. She's always listening. And she has been quietly building a life to match. Maybe that is the part that stings the most if you really sit with it. Not that the law exists. That it has been working this whole time, quietly, faithfully, exactly the way it was designed to. Just not in the direction you wanted. You were never unlucky. You were never being punished. You were simply being obeyed by something that does not know the difference between a joke and a command. This is what undid Florence, in the best possible way, once she understood it. She realized she did not need to convince herself of anything. She did not need to feel different before she spoke differently. She only needed to start giving new instructions on purpose, with the same quiet certainty she once used to describe her fears. She would stand, sometimes in an empty room, sometimes simply walking down a street, and say, almost under her breath, "Money comes to me easily and freely." Not as a hope, as a fact already settled. At first it felt strange, even dishonest, to say something that was not yet visibly true. But she kept going, because she understood something most people never stop to consider. The visible world is always the last thing to change. It is the final result, not the starting point. There is a woman I think about often, a composite of so many stories I have heard over the years, women very much like you. She had done everything right. She had worked hard, saved what she could, prayed when things got difficult. And yet there always seemed to be a wall just ahead of her. Something invisible, something she could not quite name. One night, almost out of exhaustion more than faith, she tried something different. Instead of listing what was wrong, she simply said out loud, alone in her kitchen, "I am provided for. I always have been." She did not feel a sudden shift. Nothing dramatic happened that night. But she kept saying it, quietly, dilly, almost like brushing her teeth. And months later, looking back, she realized the wall had not been knocked down all at once. It had simply, slowly stopped being there. That is the decree. But not every decree works the same way. Florence discovered there is a very specific shape a decree has to take if it is going to reach past the noise of doubt and actually land. A structure so particular that getting even one part of it wrong can keep a person repeating the same words for years with nothing changing at all. Most people never learn this part. They say the right words in the wrong shape, and then they decide the whole thing does not work for them. And that is exactly what we need to look at next. Here is what Florence noticed after watching hundreds of people try this and fail, and a much smaller number try it and succeed. The difference was never sincerity. Everyone was sincere. The difference was shape. The first piece is tense. Most people speak about what they want as something far away. I will have enough one day. Things will get better eventually. Sounds hopeful. Sounds humble even. But to the part of you that takes orders literally, will is a permanent postponement. It is an instruction to keep waiting. Forever if necessary because you never told it when to stop. Florence understood that the only tense that actually lands as an order is the present tense. Not, I will be provided for. I am provided for. Said now. Blame now. As if the delay was never real to begin with. The second piece is harder for most people, because it asks you to do something that feels almost unnatural at first. Speak about what you want without dragging the fear in beside it. Watch how easily fear sneaks into a sentence that is supposed to be about abundance. I am no longer broke. I am not going to struggle anymore. Sounds like progress. But notice what is sitting right there in the middle of the sentence, large as life. Broke. Struggle. You cannot hand someone an order and hide the opposite of that order inside it and expect them to only hear the first part. Your mind hears all of it. So Florence taught something almost severe in its simplicity. Speak only of what you want, never of what you are leaving behind. Not, I am free from debt. I am prosperous. Not, I am no longer afraid. I am safe. The old thing does not need a eulogy. Simply needs to stop being mentioned. The third piece is the one people skip past the fastest, and it is the one that matters most. A decree is not a sentence you say. It is a sentence you mean. There is a particular quality of voice, quiet, unhurried, almost bored with how obviously true it is, that separates a decree from a desperate repetition of words. You have probably heard people say their affirmations like they are pleading with the universe to please. Please let this be true this time. That energy, that grasping, undoes the whole thing. Florence said it should sound the way you would mention your own name. Not exciting. Not urgent. Simply, undeniably yours. Picture a woman saying, every morning while she makes her coffee, the same 6 words. Not shouted. Not performed. Just said the way you might hum without thinking. I am provided for. Always. 6 words. No struggle named. No future tense leaving the door open for delay. No desperation in the delivery. Just a quiet fact, repeated until her whole nervous system stopped arguing with it. Compare that to what most of us were actually taught to say without ever questioning it. I hope things turn around soon. Future tense, soaked in hope, which is just another word for not yet. Or, I'm trying to stop being so broke. Present tense, but look at what is sitting right in the center of it. Or the version said through gritted teeth, eyes squeezed shut, voice tight with effort. Technically the right words, but said like a hostage negotiation rather than a fact. All 3 feel like trying. None of them are a decree. A decree does not announce that it is working hard. Does not need to. Simply states what is, the way you would state your own address. That is the shape. Present tense. No mention of the old story. Said like it is already settled because to the part of you giving the orders, it already is. And maybe right now, hearing this, you are already running back through every affirmation you have ever tried, wondering how many of them were built the wrong way without you ever knowing it. That is not a small thing to realize. But it is not the final piece either. Because here is what nobody tells you, and what Florence eventually had to discover the hard way herself. You can say the perfectly shaped decree, present tense, free of fear, spoken with all the calm certainty in the world, and still feel something pull against it from underneath. A kind of quiet resistance you did not even know was there until you tried to move past it. That resistance has a name too. And understanding it is the only way the rest of this actually works. Florence called it resistance. And the strange thing about resistance is that it almost never looks like resistance from the inside. Does not feel like fighting. Feels like being right. Feels like the moment you see someone with more than you have, and something in your chest tightens, just slightly before you can even name it. It feels like the old irritation that rises up when a sister, a friend, a neighbor mentions a vacation, a new kitchen, an easy windfall. And you smile and you say something kind, and underneath the kindness there is a voice asking why never you. Feels like every grudge you have ever quietly carried toward someone who hurt you, someone who left, someone who took something from you that you never got back. None of that looks like it has anything to do with money. And yet Florence discovered again and again that resistance is resistance, no matter what door it walks in through. A clenched hand cannot receive. It does not matter what the hand is clenched around. There is something else, too, something almost nobody says out loud, though so many women carry it quietly for their entire lives. For many of you, there is a verse buried somewhere from childhood about money being the root of evil, sitting right next to every prayer you have ever said for more of it. And so even as you speak your decree, even as you say, I am provided for with your whole heart, some small voice underneath asks whether wanting this much, this easily, makes you greedy. Whether a spiritual woman is even allowed to want money this badly. That voice is resistance wearing the costume of conscience. And it is, without question, the quietest, most respectable form of the clenched fist there is. There is another disguise resistance wears, one that may be even more familiar to you than the others. It sounds like your own voice late at night, going over every decision that led you here. I should have known better. I should have saved more, chosen differently, started this years ago, before my 40s, before my 50s, before it started to feel like the window was closing. That voice does not feel like resistance either. Feels like honesty. Feels like accountability. But Florence would have recognized it instantly for what it is. A closed fist turned inward, gripping your own past so tightly that there is no room left to receive your future. You cannot simultaneously punish yourself for where you have been and stay open to where you are going. The hand still only knows one position. Think of a woman saying her decree every single morning, faithfully, beautifully, and then spending the rest of her day silently resenting her sister for marrying into money, silently believing that people who have wealth must have taken some kind of shortcut she was too honest to take. She is making the call with one hand and cutting the line with the other. Not because she is doing anything wrong. Because nobody ever told her that resentment and abundance cannot occupy the same room. Florence's answer to this was not effort. It was release. Not gripping harder. Loosening. She taught that the fastest way through resistance was forgiveness. Not as a moral nicety, not because the other person deserved it, but because resentment is simply a closed fist held toward the past, and you cannot hold your hand closed toward yesterday while also holding it open toward tomorrow. The hand only knows one position at a time. This does not mean pretending everything is fine. It does not mean swallowing what happened. It means quietly, privately, releasing your grip on the story, the version where you were wronged and someone owes you something they will never pay. Not for them. For your own open hand. And once the grip loosens, even slightly, something becomes possible that was not possible before. The decree finally has somewhere to land. But releasing resistance is only half of what carries a decree across the finish line. There is still the matter of what you do in the in-between, the days, sometimes the weeks, where you have said the words, release the grip, and still nothing visible has changed yet. That waiting period is where almost everyone gives up. And it is exactly where Florence discovered the final piece of all this. Florence noticed something curious about the people who succeeded with this and the people who quietly let it fall apart in the third week. It was never the decree. By that point, most people had the words right. It was what they did with their eyes while they waited. You know the habit. You say the words in the morning, and then, almost without deciding to, you spend the rest of the day checking the account balance one more time, as if it might have changed in the last 40 minutes. Checking for a sign, a feeling, some evidence that it is working. Watching the mailbox a little too closely. Reading your own mood like a weather report, looking for proof either way. There is an old saying about a watched pot never coming to a boil, and Florence would have told you it is truer than anyone realizes. Watching is not faith. Watching is doubt, dressed up as diligence, standing at the door asking, is it here yet? Is it here yet? Every few minutes, all day long. Faith, she discovered, looks almost boring from the outside. It looks like a woman who said her decree this morning and then simply went on with her day. Made the coffee, did the dishes, answered the emails, lived her life, without checking, without monitoring, without needing a single piece of evidence before she would allow herself to feel settled. Not because she did not care about the outcome. Because she had already decided the outcome. And a decision, once truly made, does not need to be rechecked 40 times before lunch. This is the part that asks the most of you, more than the decree itself, more even than releasing old resentments. It asks you to live for a while, as though the thing you are waiting for is already arranged, somewhere just out of view, the way a package is already on its way to your door long before you see the truck pull up outside. You do not stand at the window all day to make the package arrive faster. You simply trust that it is coming and you go on living your life, and one day without ceremony it is simply there. There is a particular kind of woman who masters this, and you may know her, or you may be closer to becoming her than you think. She is not loud about her faith. She does not announce that she has decreed anything to anyone. She moves through her days with a kind of quiet, almost amused certainty, the way someone moves who already knows how the story ends. When something unexpected and good comes her way, she is not shocked. She simply nods a little as if to say, of course. That nod, more than any decree, more than any single sentence she could say out loud, is the truest proof that she has stopped fighting the current and started moving with it. You can see this certainty in the smallest places, long before it shows up in a bank account. It looks like ordering what she actually wants at dinner instead of the cheapest thing on the menu, without explaining herself to anyone at the table. It looks like buying the flowers for her own kitchen counter instead of waiting for someone else to bring them. It looks like saying thank you for a compliment instead of immediately listing all the reasons it is not quite true. None of these things cost very much. But each one is a small decree of its own, a quiet rehearsal of what it feels like to already have enough, said not with words this time, but with the way she moves through an ordinary Tuesday. This is the whole of it when you put the pieces together. Not 3 separate techniques but one single motion. You speak the command, present tense, free of fear, said like it is already true. You release the grip on the past, on resentment, on the part of yourself that wants to keep punishing who you used to be. And then you stop watching the pot. You live, instead, as if the thing has already been settled because to the part of you giving the orders, it has been. This is what Florence meant by a hidden law. Not hidden because it was secret. Hidden because almost everyone is standing right on top of it, gripping the water, watching the pot, rehearsing their fear out loud every single day, completely unaware that the entire current has been waiting this whole time for them to simply stop fighting it. Before we go any further, I want to pause for just a moment. If you have made it this far with me tonight, sitting with all of this, letting it settle in, I want to invite you to subscribe to this channel and come back here with us every day. This is a place built for women exactly like you, women who are done waiting for permission to want more, and ready to actually understand the law behind it. And if I am honest, there is something I suspect a lot of you already know, even if you have never said it out loud to anyone. You did not stumble onto this video by accident tonight. Something in you has been circling this question for a long time, maybe years, waiting for someone to finally explain it in a way that did not sound like a sales pitch or a fairy tale. Maybe you have watched a dozen videos like this one already, looking for the version that finally clicks. If that is you, leave a word in the comments. Just one. Ready, or listening, or whatever feels true tonight. I read every one of them, and I promise you, You are not the only woman sitting exactly where you are right now. Now let's go back to where we left off. Because there is one thing I have not said yet, and it might be the most important sentence in this entire video. It is not too late for you. I know how that sentence can land. I know there is a particular kind of grief that comes with being 35 or 50 or 62, and realizing you are still asking the same question you asked 20 years ago. There is a voice that whispers somewhere around this age that the window has narrowed, that other women your age already have what you are still hoping for, that perhaps this law works for everyone except you simply because you started too late, noticed too late, believed too late. Florence would have told you that voice is not telling you the truth. It is only telling you the oldest resistance there is. The belief that time itself can outrun a law that does not run on time at all. The current in the river does not check anyone's age before it carries them. It does not ask how many years you spent paddling against it before you finally let go. The moment you stop resisting is the only moment that matters, and that moment is always, without exception, available right now. I think of a woman 61 years old, who told me once that she had spent 3 decades believing her chance had already come and gone. She had raised children, buried a husband, rebuilt a life twice over, and somewhere in all of that rebuilding, she had quietly decided that ease, real ease with money, was simply not going to be part of her story. It was for younger women, luckier women, women who had not already used up their turn. And then, almost by accident, she came across this same law, late one night, unable to sleep. She did not believe it at first. She tried it anyway, mostly out of exhaustion. Within a season, not overnight, not dramatically, but steadily, things in her life that had felt stuck for years began, quietly, to move. She told me the strangest part was not the money itself. It was realizing the window had never actually closed. She had simply stopped checking if it was open. So tonight, before you fall asleep, I want you to try something. Not a long ritual. Not a complicated practice. Just this. Find one quiet sentence. Present tense, nothing of the old story left inside it, said the way you would say your own name. And let it be the last thing you think before sleep takes you. Perhaps it is the very one Florence used. Perhaps it is your own. I am provided for, easily, and always. Say it once, quietly, and let your hand unclench around whatever you have been holding on to. Not because the situation has changed yet, because you have decided it already has. This is the part nobody tells you about decrees said right before sleep. The mind does not argue as much in that last drowsy minute before it lets go. There is no committee of doubts standing by to debate you. There is only the sentence, sinking quietly into the part of you that has been taking orders faithfully your entire life, finally given an order worth following. Go back for a moment to that kitchen table. The one at the end of the month. The one where this all began tonight. Maybe the light over it is the same yellow light it always is. Maybe there is still a stack of mail you have not opened, sitting exactly where you left it. Picture yourself sitting there again, except this time something has shifted. Not the numbers necessarily. Not yet. What has shifted is the woman sitting in the chair. She is not gripping the table the way she used to. She is not running the same tired sentence through her mind on a loop. She has said her decree. She has loosened her hand around the old story. The resentment, the blame, the version of herself she has been quietly punishing for years. And she has stopped watching the pot. She does not know exactly when it will arrive. She has simply decided, without needing proof first, that it is already on its way. That is the whole transformation. Not a sudden fortune. Not fireworks. A woman, sitting at the same table, in the same kitchen, breathing differently than she did an hour ago. That is where it always starts. Every river you have ever heard of, every current strong enough to carry a person somewhere new, began as something almost too quiet to notice. Somewhere inside you, that loyal assistant we talked about earlier is already taking notes. She has heard something tonight she has not heard from you in a long time. A new set of instructions said quietly, without panic, without the old script running underneath. She does not need you to convince her. She does not need you to prove anything to her with tonight's bank balance. She simply does what she has always done. She listens, and she begins, patiently, to rearrange your life around what you just told her was true. You do not need to tell anyone what just happened in you tonight. You do not need to explain this video to your sister, your husband, the friend who would only ask if you have finally lost it. Some things do not need an audience to be real. They only need to be true in the one room where you actually live, which is the quiet room behind your own eyes. Florence lived a long life after she discovered what she discovered. She did not become famous in the way the word usually means. She simply stopped fighting, and she spent the rest of her years showing other women, one at a time, how to set the same hand down. That is what you are part of now, whether you intended to be or not. Not a follower of a technique. A woman who finally understands that the current was never against her. It was simply waiting for her to stop paddling. I'm not going to tell you what to feel about that. I think you already know. Before you go, if this found you tonight the way it was meant to, I want to ask you for something small. Subscribe so we can keep finding each other like this, night after night, video after video. And if there is a woman in your life, a sister, a friend, someone at that same kitchen table in her own kitchen, send this to her. Not one person. 5 if you can think of 5. Some of them are paddling harder than you know, and most of them have never had anyone explain it to them this way. And before you close this video, leave one honest sentence in the comments. Not a performance. Not the version you would say out loud at dinner. Just the truth of where you are tonight, however small or however heavy it feels. And if there is something still sitting unanswered in you, a question this video did not quite reach, a part of the story you wish I had gone deeper on, tell me what it is. That may be exactly where we go next. Sleep well tonight. Let your hands stay open.